Hi, welcome. This is Citi TV. My name is Nathan Kwa. Welcome to a special edition of the AFCON Daily Show. I know the AFCON is a few weeks or months away, but the draw has been done. We finally get a picture of how the groups look like and how the initial stages for every single participant in the next AFCON in Cote d'Ivoire, how their initial first few days or weeks in Cote d'Ivoire will look like in terms of fixtures for the group stage. So that's why we've put this show together, a 1 hour special looking at the AFCON groups. We'll focus on the Black Stars a little later. We'll talk about their chances, their potential journey out of the group and potentially into the latter stages of the competition. And so this is why I've put the show together. Many thanks for tuning in. Typically, we'll be doing the Premier League preview show, or the preview show returns next week, so that can wait. The AFCON is upon us, and we need to discuss the groupings after the draw was done yesterday in Abidjan. My name is Nathan Kwa once again. Many thanks for tuning in. You can send in your thoughts and comments on the WhatsApp number on your screen, Let's talk about the AFCON. Let's talk about the Black Stars. How far can they potentially go, and what exactly will be happening in the other groups now that we know their complexion and their makeup? We'll take a very quick break. When we come back, my guests are ready. We'll zoom in on the groups and have a very interesting AFCON chat for the next 1 hour or so. This is Citi TV. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Come back to a special edition of the AFCON Daily. Like I said, we'll be looking over the groups, really, because the draw has been done. It was done yesterday in Abidjan at the lovely Parc d'Exposition. That's where the draw took place. So now we know the makeup of the groups. We'll get into the groups, how they look like, potential chances. We'll zone in on the Black Stars proper, because really that's the focus of our attention. The Black Stars, can they do better than they did the last time they played in an AFCON in Cameroon? And potentially, can they win the cup? We wait to see. After 1982, they haven't done that. Let me introduce my guest, Yam Pofu Jr. I say, yeah, how are you doing?
Nathan, I'm fine.
All right, and I have Edmond Sedinam. Edmond, how are you doing?
I'm good, yourself?
All right, I'm all right, thank you. Later on, we'll be getting on the Zoom to speak to our colleague, Susu Graham, and we'll find out whatever it is he's been up to. Susu, I don't know if you can hear me. Good afternoon, if you can hear me.
Oh, I can hear you. It's a pleasure to be back.
Yes. It's nice to have you on. Guys, thank you so much for joining us once again. Let's have a look at the groups first. All 6 groups of the AFCON groups A to F after the draw was done. That's how they look like, the groups. Now, everybody knows who they'll be facing in the competition. In Group A, you've got Cote d'Ivoire, you've got Nigeria, you have Equatorial Guinea, and you've got Guinea-Bissau. In Group B, there's Egypt and Ghana, and they are meeting for the first time since AFCON 2017, if I believe. I was at that particular game. Cape Verde and Mozambique, 2 other teams who are quite familiar with the Black Stars. Group C, you have Senegal, Cameroon, Guinea, and the Gambia. Group D, you have Algeria, Burkina Faso, Mauritania, and Angola. And then Group E, you've got Tunisia, Mali, South Africa, Namibia. And then Group F, you have Morocco, DR Congo, Zambia, and Tanzania. Those are the 6 groups that came out of the AFCON draw that was done in Abidjan yesterday. Guys, welcome once again. Let me take everybody's thoughts on maybe the draw in general, and I'll let everybody tell me what their favorite group is. Edmond, let me start off with you. When you look at this 6 groups, 24 teams, your thoughts on just the composition of everything we see on the screen?
Well, for me, if everything is evenly spread out. The top teams are where they should be, and then the teams in Pot 2, some of them find themselves in lucky positions, others find themselves in extremely difficult positions. And when you go down the ladder, the other guys also fall where they should be. For me, it's evenly spread out, and in as much as certain groups are easily pointed out as group of death, others can also, you can consider them aka the Fala group or the walkover group, where it's obviously looking in the direction of one particular team. Okay. But it's well spread out this time, not a coagulation of big teams in a certain group.
I see. Your thoughts on the composition of the groups?
I think it shows how far African football has come at the moment, especially with the national team. Now you cannot exactly pick out, even with the pot 3 or pot 4 teams, which ones won't make it out of the group, given the fact that the last African Cup of Nations, we saw a lot of surprises, even with the big guys in the African football scene. But again, it's a spread out, like my brother said. I think whoever will qualify to the next stage will really, really have to put up a performance in the African Cup of Nations. And see, it will be difficult.
I see. So I'm sure you've seen the groups as well. Of these groups, which one jumps at you as one that is wow, and the other one, or another one that says, oh, this is easy for teams A or B in their particular group?
For me, I think Group C is where there's an issue, because we saw the Gambia, I believe, at the last AFCON. They played some very decent football. They were very difficult to break down. So, and then Guinea have some talented players, and we know Senegal and Cameroon are some of the leading national teams on this continent. So when you look at it with these 4 teams there, it could be a very difficult group, because you can see a situation where Senegal and Cameroon are unable to break down Gambia, for example. And they can easily, and one of them is going to draw points against the other, if not both. So you can see there's a lot of points that can be lost in this group very easily. I also think that the team I think has probably the easiest group, in my opinion, is Morocco. I think if I look at Zambia, Congo, and Tanzania, I don't see them doing much to cause trouble for Morocco. So I think Morocco should have it fairly easy. I expect them to get at least 7 points, because maybe they draw a Congo, maybe they are not on their game that day, but they should be able to beat the other teams, Zambia and Tanzania, very easy.
Okay.
And just speaking about Ghana, I think our group is very qualifiable from.
Okay.
I don't know if qualifiable is a word, but I think we should be able to get out, because not only is it the four best third place teams going through, the fact is we should be beating Cape Verde and Mozambique player for player. Maybe Egypt is the only team that I look in that group, I feel like there's some trouble. So player for player, we should be qualifying. So if we don't, I would say it's more a tactical issue than anything.
Okay, all right. We're zoning on the Black Stars in a bit, but guys, let's start off with Group A, let's start off with Group B. Let's look at the Ghana group. Let's focus on the Ghana group rather. We'll get to Group A in a second. This is the group that Ghana has. They take on Egypt, they'll take on Cape Verde, and they take on Mozambique. Now, if this is the fixture list, if this is anything to go by, we could probably say Ghana and Egypt. I don't know if the schedules, the fixtures are out yet.
Yeah, they are out.
Black Stars
play Cape Verde first.
So they take on Cape Verde first.
Yeah.
Then Mozambique second.
No,
Egypt second. So by the time Ghana takes on Egypt, they'll know whether they have 3 points, 1 point, or 0. And that makes that game against Egypt a very, very, very important one. Let me take your thoughts. As the grouping was going on, did you expect Ghana to be here with Egypt in one group?
With prayer. I think when the groups were evenly shared, I'm like, see, we need a good group. If we don't get a good group, then really, really Ghana are going to struggle in the tournament. And see, Egypt is maybe the toughest of all in the group. Cape Verde, Ghana. Obviously, every Ghanaian expects the Black Stars to walk over Cape Verde and Mozambique, but it's not going to be easy, given the fact that our last African Cup of Nations, countries like Comoros gave us a very tough run, and and also when you look at the building process of the Black Stars over the period, it has not been convincing, even against the smaller African ties. I should put in context. So if the Black Stars are going to go into the tournament and be losing against Cape Verde, then we have no business doing in Ivory Coast. But regardless, I think we have built over the period, maybe not so progressive as every Ghanaian will want, but the structure is there. We have a manager we trust in, Chris Hughton, that he'll do a good work. So I think it's a good start, enough to qualify Ghana from the group stages.
Edmond, Chris Hughton has commented. He says Egypt he's familiar with. These other teams, Cape Verde and Mozambique, he's not too sure of what they bring. So between now and the competition, he'll have to watch games and get more info. What kind of problem will the Black Stars potentially face in this group? We know Egypt is the most obvious problem. But what could be the major challenges Ghana could face just looking at this group as it is?
Well, looking at this group as it is, for me, Cape Verde, in the past 4 games that we've met them, we have beaten them. So we've accounted for them each time we play them, be it an international friendly, a World Cup qualifier, or even an AFCON qualifier. But when it comes to Mozambique then falls in the bracket of Comoros, just like we did not know their quantity going into the tournament last time. And he coming out to say, frankly, that he doesn't know much about them. It gives him the opportunity to actually watch games of these guys, because these guys are actually having some interesting games, because Mozambique are playing Nigeria. And if that's anything to go by, Nigeria, some way, somehow, aside the fact that they have a lot more attackers than us, they play in a similar fashion. And that would give him a better opportunity to watch these 2 teams. Cape Verde is also actually playing, I think, today, and they're playing an Angolan side. It gives him the opportunity to watch them, because they will also be playing other games before the tournament. He mentioned something really critical, which is research. And for me, that means that the GFA needs to put together a team to properly research on these 2 nations, because Nathan, they are quite close to us in the rankings as well, because we are 11th, Cape Verde is 14th, and then Mozambique is 26th. So that means that this group is really, really tight. We should not go and sleep over, or else we can have a surprise behind our backs.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room, Egypt. The last time the Black Stars played Egypt in the AFCON, I was at that game. Ghana lost by a goal. This was in the 2017 edition in Gabon, I believe it was. 6 years on, they meet again. Then it was the same thing. Ghana met them in the second group game. Ghana is meeting Egypt in the second group game. Between now and January, a lot can happen. Players can dip in form. But Edmond, if you were Chris Hughton and you were thinking about this game, or you were thinking about this group, looking at that game in particular, what should the Black Stars, by the time they take on Egypt, what should they be good at to overcome these guys? Because Egypt are experts at winning the AFCON. They've been there or thereabouts. I think they made the last final. They took on Senegal. What can the Black Stars do to match them at that level? Because this is the highest level of African football. Yeah.
One thing the Black Stars need to really do is to be apt when it comes to defending in latter stages of games. That is where we know that the Egyptians can pull a surprise, especially going into that time, the quote-unquote Fergie time, and it's all 0-0. Definitely, they ought to be in favor of the Egyptians, because they are those guys who normally would pile all the pressure, and if they are winning by a solitary goal, they are going to start all the gimmicks in this world just to make sure the clock runs down. As Chris Hughton is going into this game, if I were him, one thing I would do is not focus on Salah as a player, but focus on the system that the Egyptians deploy. The system that is so favorable to Salah, you should create a counter system that would be so unfavorable to Salah going into the game.
Yeah, we've seen the Black Stars, and we'll see them play 2 friendlies in the next week or so, this weekend and early next week. What are you looking, with this at the back of your mind, what are you looking for? What are you looking for in terms of performance and all of that, as the Black Stars start to think about this AFCON group, now that it's quite clear?
I think the Egyptians are very similar to the Mexicans when in terms of approach. The Mexicans equally frustrate you. They are very physical. They love to keep the ball. And then they attack in moments where you lose your concentration, which has been the problem of the Black Stars anytime they've played against Egypt. You realize, most of the games... Okay, let me start from this point. Egypt averagely score less than a goal in any AFCON game. Look at the last African Cup of Nations. It's just 0.6. The average is, you look at 0.6 per goal. So they are not typically your team that will want to score. But again, they've changed from the system that they used in the last African Cup of Nations, moving away from the manager who took them to the finals of the competition. So equally, you are going to see a very different Egyptian side. But however, look at the games, and their numbers is no more than 2. Which is 1.96 thereabout. So we are looking at an Egypt team that have moved from the last time they were at 0.6 to maybe a progression 1.9796. So typically, the Egypt of old is not the Egypt of new. And when you are facing them, even though our averages when it comes to the goals have been very difficult, and you look at the frame in which they've gotten the goals, it's been the 90th, the 80th thereabouts. That's where Egypt have beaten us by 1-0, 1-0. So concentration playing against Mexico should be very key, and then equally against a very attacking USA side, especially given the two teams you are going to play against. There are interesting things about these two teams that we need to discuss.
All right, so let me bring you in. You've been quiet. I don't know your thoughts on this group, but initial thoughts, when this group was put together, were you concerned that the Egyptians were back to take on Ghana? That's question one. And question two, how can Ghana navigate its way out of this group, knowing that the Black Stars have been struggling to score goals, they've been struggling to break teams down, and the Egyptians, to be brutally honest, are a level or two above the Black Stars currently?
I disagree with you on the last part. I don't think player for player there's anything we should fear. I think if we are not able to perform, and I think based on all we've seen from the Black Stars in the last few games, right now it's a coaching issue if you are not playing well enough. Simply put, because when I look at our players and I look at their level of performance in European leagues, I'm looking at their level of performance for their clubs. These are players who are world class. They are performing at the highest level. We have Thomas Partey, we have Salis, two of them in the same Champions League group, mind you. We have Mohamed Kudus starring for West Ham. Osman Bukhari, we've seen him in the Champions League. He scored against Man City. The next game, I think he scored and assisted for Red Star Belgrade.
Yeah, he did.
So our players are making an impact in Europe. They are playing very well. We have Naki Williams scoring a decent amount in La Liga. So we have Alexander Djikou looking great for Fenerbahce. Like, I can go on and on about our players and how well they are performing. So for me, at this point, we should be able to beat every team in Africa, player for player. We should be able to compete. And we have to be the best to win the competition anyway. So for me, Egypt being there is not an issue. And like Yao said, if we can't beat Cape Verde, we have no business going anywhere at the AFCON. So if we don't win our first game, we don't beat Mozambique. If we draw against Egypt, we can say, okay, we drew. But if we have to win those other two games, go to the next round and play better football and get the results. Because I have to be honest, I think after the first few games we've watched with Chris Hughton, the team looks disjointed. The attacking setup is not as fluid as it could be. And the defense is not even compact. Like, what was the last game we played? Was it against Central African Republic?
Yes, it was Central African Republic.
Yeah. I'm sure everyone in the studio would agree with me that performance was not particularly encouraging, especially for a team that we should be beating hands down. So I think right now, when I look at us player for player, I don't see us having exceptional weaknesses in the player department. I think maybe there's a few positions where I'm not too sure about our players. I can say maybe our fullbacks might not really be there, and our goalkeeper is not playing at the highest level. But aside that, when I look at other things, I'm just thinking to myself that this is a very good squad who should be doing very well. And if it doesn't, I think it's down to the coach. So I'm not too concerned about any team on the continent. I'm more concerned about whether our coach can get us to perform to the level we need to perform.
Just final thoughts on this, and I take final thoughts from the guys in studio. You've seen the group. Where does Ghana finish? Position 1 or 2?
I would say based on what I've seen from Chris Hughton, we'll probably finish 2. But when I look at our players, I think we can be position 1. I don't see any reason why we can't top this group. Okay. So I think, it's up to Chris Hughton to kind of get the team playing the football we want to see them playing and get them playing at the highest level.
Okay, all right. Guys, where do we finish?
Choose. I would love if the Black Stars finished third, escaped all the big teams. But
the Black Stars to finish third in this group.
If we finish third and we play maybe not Nigeria or not Ivory Coast team, then it means we have beat the other guys from the Group A. But equally, one key thing to know in the last African Cup of Nations or the last 2 editions of the African Cup of Nations is Egypt have won or gone to the finals via their goalkeepers, and it's quite simple.
Via their goalkeepers.
Goalkeepers.
Interesting.
The defense and the goalkeepers has been the key for the Egyptian national team, or even the Senegal national team.
Okay, Edmond.
Can I cut something?
So just a second, Edmond.
Well, for me, we should be dreaming of the top spot. That means finding a way to beat Egypt, so that if we fall short, we'll be second. I disagree with you. We need to mix it up with the big boys. So we need to play the likes of Nigeria or Cote d'Ivoire. Whoever qualifies first or second, we need to mix it up with the big boys. It's about time we start mixing up with the big boys and climbing up the ranks and getting out of pot 2.
Okay.
See, it's for me, it's about being strategic. And if the strategy means being third and qualifying to the semi-finals or finals, then I'll take it.
All right. Okay. So just a quick comment. We need to.
Yeah,
move
I
on.
wanted to say to Yao, they're finishing third and things because of the way the AFCON is with the third place groups and stuff. It's not really fixed who you play in the next round.
Yes.
So it
It's a
can
bit
be very
randomized.
random because of the group. So you can't really avoid a big team in that way unless all the big teams finish first. That's really the only way to avoid the big teams. I think if you look at the group, it's like depending on which groups the third place comes off, like they have a complicated way of doing it. It's not straightforward, and it makes planning for the tournament a bit confusing for us watching. Which is why those 32 team and 16 team tournaments are very easy because you know that 1A is playing 2B, etc., etc. So
Okay. Edmond, your thoughts on this group? I did not expect Nigeria to be here. I kind of wanted Nigeria in Ghana's group, but that wasn't going to happen. We're in the same pot. But your initial thoughts on the makeup of this group?
Very interesting groups, and makes it a little difficult for Côte d'Ivoire because they would have wanted a very easy group, but hey, Nigeria are now turning themselves into the free scoring side of Africa because of the amount of attackers that they have in their squad currently. And for Equatorial Guinea and Guinea-Bissau is one interesting team. The last tournament, they had an issue from their government side towards them.
Yeah.
And after the tournament, we heard all kinds of rumors that from the tournament grounds, everybody left to their clubs and stuff because they were told to either win it or not come home. But going into this tournament, hey, it's going to be very interesting. But everybody will expect Côte d'Ivoire and Nigeria to qualify. Côte d'Ivoire, because they are host, and host getting out at this point early during the group stages will not help attendance. That's one.
Okay.
For Nigeria to also leave, it will mean a heavyweight has left. But I want to see Guinea-Bissau make it through, though. How they manage to do that, I am trying to guess how they can. But I would really love to see them and maybe Côte d'Ivoire.
I see.
I wish Nigeria would also. I wish them the best.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
I think it's an interesting group. Let me put it in that context. Nigeria have changed a bit again under Ghana Shaw. We saw Nigeria scoring a lot of goals, but losing maybe not so necessary games. Games you think Nigeria could easily just run out, and then they kept losing those games. And then they move on to Eguavon. Eguavon wasn't Eguavon against the Black Stars ahead of the World Cup. And then they moved on to Piseiro. Piseiro appears to be the stability the Nigerians, and then just recently renewed his contract. And now they are blessed with more and more talent. So you look at the attacking phase, you have Boniface, they have Victor Osimhen, who scored the most goals in the AFCON qualifying series. And then you also have Lukman, who scored the most goals by an Atlanta player in the Serie A last season. So you're looking at the top 5 African scorers in Europe, and you have about 2-3 Nigerians. So it's more of an interesting side who would love to score, but the balance in midfield and defense has been the problem. Unlike Ivory Coast, who have Willy Bolly, they have Frank Kesse, who are able to balance, but the attacking pairing has not exactly worked for them. For Zaha is in there.
They're like two contrasting teams.
Exactly.
One team has a lot of attacking talent.
Yes.
The other one has a slightly better defense.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I spoke about African Cup of Nations being won by goalkeepers.
And
then
defenses.
for the two national teams, has been, up and down, especially for Nigeria, who have had Ozoho in there. They have other goalkeepers coming in. They've not really settled on who is the first goalkeeper, and that's the problem.
All right, let's move on to Group C. Group C has the defending champions. Now, this is a very, very interesting clash, and Susu highlighted this. We saw the Gambia in the last edition. They were fantastic to watch. And that Thompson feat, very disciplined side. We know what the Guineans possess, a sprinkling of quality here and there, very organized team. But these two guys really exemplify, the power and dynamic of African football. Cameroon, we know the quality they have. They've got a goalkeeper with the most attention these days, Andre Onana. Senegal come in with a reputation to defend and a trophy to defend. Thoughts on this group?
I think for the two, we spoke about goalkeepers.
Yes.
The two, Senegal and Cameroon, both have had the goalkeepers with the best save percentage in the UEFA Champions League in Andre Onana,
Yeah.
who was the last season's with the most save percentage and the most clean sheets and then there was at a point the Chelsea goalkeeper who made history with Chelsea, but Edouard Mendy sadly has left the scene. So 2 quality goalkeepers, the defense is in shape, their midfielders are quality. Now both of the sides have brought in extra new gems into the team. You look at Senegal, there's Nicolas Jackson, who is being introduced into the team. And then there's Sadio Mane, who is a veteran for Cameroon. Kyle Toko, as a known face in the scene.
Abubakar, their captain.
Vincent Abubakar. Interestingly, when they played the last African Cup of Nations, there were a little bit of gimmicks in there with issues because you have Choupo-Moting, who is a veteran of the team, wanting to play more games, even though he wasn't exactly fit before the African Cup of Nations. And then there's Kyle Toko, who also thought, well, the young boys should have been giving up more opportunities other than looking at, the players who are playing bigger teams. And that didn't exactly work out properly in the last phase. But this should be an interesting group where we see talent because there is Naby Keita here. There's the Gambia. Interesting outfit, and we'll see how it goes.
I'm sure a lot of people will quickly take off Senegal and Cameroon and say they're favorites, but these 2 sides can cause problems.
Yeah, Nathan, for me, I believe this is going to be the group of shock and surprise. Looking at Cameroon, they always go into a tournament, whether they host it or they travel to go and play, with some form of controversy. We now have to wait for the next 85 days because their controversy will definitely start. We'll see which kind of controversy they go into the tournament with, and that would affect their performance. They have all the stars, they have all the makings to at least push forward. We've already heard the likes of Onana trying to say that in some form of reports saying that he's considering retiring from the national team because he wants to focus more on United. That might not augur well for Cameroon going into the tournament. That's what I'm saying. We want to see which kind of shenanigans they'll come up with.
They always come up with all kinds of drama and stories.
That's why the likes of Guinea and Gambia are really going to, especially Guinea.
Yeah.
Guinea, I expect them going into this, they are doing something good. In as much as they've got talent already, they are still looking outside to see who they can bring into the ranks.
They do have somebody in the Bundesliga, Dirassi, I think his name is.
Yeah.
Scoring for fun.
He scored the most
13 goals.
He scored the most goals.
So that's a weapon they can utilize.
Now they have Naby Keita in midfield
Naby Keita.
and linking up with him. So
is he fit though?
Is he fit?
Will he be fit?
He has
For the national team, he's
always ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
Naby Keita has an interesting record, and that's why I'm not counting him in this Guinea team. But hey, I am expecting a big surprise in this particular group. Senegal, good.
Okay.
Cameroon, questionable.
Okay. Let's see if Guinea and the Gambia can add more drama. Let's get to Group D. Group D. Algeria, Burkina Faso, Mauritania, and Angola. Now, if there's a team in here that wants to rewrite its AFCON story, it is Algeria. The last outing they had 2 years ago was an absolute horror show, and they would want to turn things around. Burkina Faso gave us great moments in the last AFCON, unlike Algeria. We saw Mauritania. They're also doing something great with the football. Yeah. And we've seen Angola up close and personal. Ghana played them not too long ago, or played against them not too long ago. This is a very interesting group. You take out Algeria as probably the most standout. These 3 teams that are left have the potential of giving us excitement.
I see attacking football running through. Algeria, Burkina Faso, Mauritania, all these teams love to attack. And let me pick on the Algerians a bit. They've moved on from the Algerian side that won the African Cup of Nations, given Jamal Belmadi, who is their manager. A lot of the stars that were at the last AFCON, when they did their research, they felt, well, these players did overly stuff. Yeah. So let's move on.
They were past their best.
Yeah, past their best. So Baghdad Bounige sidelined. Some of the players, Brahimi sidelined. Riyad Mahrez even doesn't get continuous call-ups into the team. They feel, well, he's the captain. He's there, but they give the younger ones opportunity. And Mohamed Amour Amin for Kotoko Fant, you remember him playing against Kumasi Asante Kotoko at the Accra Sports Stadium, scoring the last minute and setting up the order as they beat Kumasi Asante Kotoko at the Accra Sports Stadium. Now, it was a progression for the national team to slot him into the national team. So, from ES Setif, he had a move to Norway. From Norway, moved, and then finally he's found himself around France, and he's helping the national team. So the progression was nice for him. Mohamed Amoura Amin, and is one of the key players. Even though, even at 24, he doesn't exactly start for the Nigerian national team. He's part of the group who come into the game and change because of his pace and the quality he brings.
I see. Very interesting. Burkina Faso, Mauritania, and Angola. We'll see how this one plays out. Let's move on to Group E. Now, a lot of people think that this is the group of death. I don't know why people say so.
Death.
Yes, some people think it's the group of death. Tunisia, Mali, South Africa, and Namibia. Edmond, I don't know what you make of this group.
Well, people might say so because of where South Africa are coming from. South Africa, to qualify, they had to beat Algeria. They beat Algeria to everybody's surprise. So if people think that the South Africans now are up to it, they may be right in some perspective, and others they are not right. Because South Africa always flatters to deceive, especially with the male side when it comes to tournament. Mali, we can account for them. Tunisia, we know their gimmicks and tricks that they are going to bring into this one. But for Namibia, we want to see how they would come into this one. Because South Africa and Namibia are two teams that normally would play in their southern...
the COSAFA
COSAFA.
They know each other very well.
Yeah. They know each other very well. Mali stand out as the West African side here, and Tunisia the North African part. But if football is to shift in terms of dynamics in Africa, then this is the group that's going to make it happen. Then we'd likely see South Africa especially trying to make it out of the group, on top of either Mali or Tunisia.
Wow.
But Tunisia coming into this tournament also are trying as much as possible to rewrite their own AFCON history, which has been somewhat shambolic.
Yeah. Since 2004. Their last capture of the crown was in 2004. So that's a long time ago, 19 years.
African football has changed a lot, and you cannot exactly concentrate or keep the local players playing only in Africa, and that's what has affected Tunisia. You look at the crop of players that they brought to the last African Cup of Nations, and a lot of them, about 70% of them were
Played
coming
in
from
the Tunisian
league. You look at the last winners of the African Cup of Nations, and they are highly dominant from Europe. So they knew they needed to do more, and it's quite right that they brought in new players who are playing in Europe to the Tunisian national team.
All right, let's move on to the final group, Group F, quickly, and then we can wrap it up. Morocco, DR Congo, Zambia, and Tanzania. We saw Tanzania play some very interesting football 2019, the AFCON. Zambia 2012 winners. Since then, it's not really worked out. DR Congo will excite, but not too much to show. Morocco, great reputation as a footballing country, but their AFCON record is not too great.
This is an interesting group again. The pairs are all really interesting. You know, let me start from Zambia and not Morocco. Zambia, because they started the project with Michelin Sredovic, and then they were over dependent on the individual variables within the team. I look at Patson Dakar, you look at the other players, especially for the midfielders, and they were looking out for one other midfielder from the Dutch national team to join, but the player refused to join, and so the national team thought we should move past Mitchell and then go on to the ranks. So, well, I don't see them surprising too much, but for Morocco, it is high investment, which has met up with, you know, quality and then research. So Morocco are also now bringing, you know, Brahim Diaz into the team, and it will be interesting how they pan out.
Edmond, just very quickly, in a few seconds, based on what Morocco did in the World Cup, how much pressure is on them to succeed in this AFCON?
A lot of pressure. They are actually seeing themselves as favorites because being the only team from Africa so far to make the semi-final of the World Cup, you are coming into your home tournament. Everybody expects you to at least get into the final. So they are coming into this particular group with a lot of pressure, and Tanzania is not going to make it easy on them because of the investment that has gone into their local league, and as well as Congo, who is going to import everybody from outside to come and play for them.
All right, guys, thank you so much. Those were my guests, Edmond Sedinam and Yaan Pofu Jr. they joined me. Thanks to Susu Graham for also joining us via the Zoom. And many, many thanks to you out there for watching. It's been a very special episode of the AFCON Daily Show, looking back on the AFCON draw that was held in Cote d'Ivoire yesterday. The tournament is in January, so between now and then you can chew on the groups, have your debates, and here at Citi FM and Citi TV, we'll bring you all the updates, and then when the tournament goes live, we'll be here to carry you through every single step of the way. Many thanks for watching. My name is Nathan Kwao. We'll catch you next week with another exciting football program. The Premier League preview show will be back as usual. Enjoy your weekend, stay safe, and bye-bye.